Hello, Equimomo here, and welcome to my build guide / gameplay commentary on my good old Classic Dual Wield Duelist. Gonna first go over my passive skill tree, then my gear and my gems, and then I'm going to play this unidentified Maelstrom map, which I happen to have, and have some fun in that. So, and by the way, if you have any questions about the build, feel free to ask me in the comments. So let's get started. Start by taking a look at my normal skill tree. I went for the attack speed in the beginning, then I went for physical damage and life, then I went for armor evasion and life. Did I say physical damage and life? I said wrong there. Anyway, I went for Master Arena, Bravery, Art of the Gladiator, Devrish, and here I have Might and Influence, a unique duel, which I highly recommend getting, and you can get this one by quite easily. Either you're getting lucky that it drops for you, it's a fairly common duel, or you can just trade it with some other players. It usually are very cheap to get. And one important thing with this duel, when you have at least 40 dexterity in a radius, it just says dexterity in a radius. And as you can see here we have 10 dexterity, here we have 10 dexterity, here we have 10 dexterity, and here we have 10 dexterity. It doesn't says allocated, so yeah, just need to have a dexterity in the radius. And when you're using this one, you have 20% chance to deal double damage with your main hand weapon when using Dual Strike, and I'm using Dual Strike as my main attack skill for this build. You can use Cleave as well, and there are some other skills you can use in this build as well, but I prefer using Dual Strike. And the other effect are that my offhand weapon will deal splash damage on targets, which will increase my AoE potential quite a bit. Then I have Cloth and Chain. Then I have Swagger. I think that is the right way to pronounce it, but tell me in comment if I said that wrong, which I probably did. I have Amber Dexterity for some nice 50% increased damage with main hand weapon, and 50% increase. 20% increased attack speed with offhand weapon, which is really nice. And I have Blade Barrier for some nice block chance, and also increased my damage when dual wielding, which is really nice. And I have Iron Reflexes. This one is a little bit interesting. If you only have pure armor gear on your character, this one is not really necessary, but it gives you a bit of flexibility when it comes to gear, and you can use evasion gear and it will give you armor. So it converts all of your evasion to armor instead, which is really nice. And moving on, I have Gladiator's Preservations, I think this one is called. So nice damage, and Liching as life, increase my lich chance when I damaging enemies with physical damage. And I only do in physical damage. I have another Yule Socket here, which this one in particular give me a block chance when dual wielding, and some melee damage, and some attack damage when dual wielding. Quite nice stuff. Just some basic stuff, and a Yule like this is very cheap. I took the whole big life wheel here, and I have Path of the Warrior. Let's move on. I have Swift, whatever this one is called, but it increases my physical damage and my attack speed and impale some enemies, which is quite nice, with some extra damage. I have for some protection, Soul of Steel, gave me a good amount of flat armor, increased my armor, and to all maximum resistance, which is quite nice. I also have Bloodless for some extra survivability. I have Lost for Carnage for some nice leech and a good amount of attack speed. I have Juggernaut, I have Razor's Edge, and I have Blade Master. And I also have the Red Storm for some increased physical damage and increased chance to curse bleeding, which is even more damage. I have another Yule Socket there, block chance when dual wielding, increased damage, increased attack damage when dual wielding, and increased attack speed. You can have life on these notes as well. And I went to the Marauder area a bit. I took Strong Arm to get some more damage. I have Born to Fight, Heart of the Warrior for some protection, and Warrior's Blood for some nice life generation and some strength. And I have Diamond Skin. If you are worried about getting stunned, you can take Unwavering Stance if you want to. I also have Barbarism, and I have Resolute Techniques, so my attacks can't miss, but I can't crit either. But I haven't spec'd into any crits, so having Resolute Technique just means that you will hit 100% of the time anyway. And that's pretty much my basic skill tree. For my Ascendancy skill tree, here is what it looks like. I start by taking Painforged, first time I ascended. Then I took Versatile to Combatant, means that your chance to block spells are equal to your chance to block attack, which is quite nice. And I took Blood in the Eye and Gorgeous Violence. I took Gorgeous Violence because I want to have that extra damage from bleed. But in this build, you can take Outmatched Outlast. It will be a quite good choice as well. And if you want to spec even more into block chance, you can take Violent Retaliation. But if you don't have amazingly high block chance, I don't really recommend this one. When it comes to Arena Challenger, it could work. You can take it if you want to, but I prefer taking Blood in the Eye and Gorgeous Violence, Painforged and Versatile to Combatant. And that's pretty much my skill tree. If you have any questions about that, feel free to ask me in the comments. So let's take a look at my items. When it comes to my weapon, you just want a pair of weapons which have as high as you can get attack speed and physical damage. That's the most important stats. Attack speed and physical damage. And that goes for both of them. For my helmet, just a defensive helmet with life and the resistance you might need. And also try to get some strength if you can on most of the items, because it both increases your life and the melee damage you do. For my rings and amulets, try to get a ring which have life and resistance you might need. And also try to get a ring which have some physical damage on, like this ring for example, where you can see I have crafted added physical damage to attacks. And the best rings you can have are steel rings, because they have implicit mod added physical damage already. You can get even more physical damage on them, which makes them far more powerful. But they are a little bit more expensive than these ones and these rings. Actually, they're quite a bit more expensive. And also, you can see this ring in particular have 0.22 of physical damage is leached as mana. So that is actually my source of my mana for this build. Try to get a pair of rings, so I think that actually exists on gloves as well. So you can have some mana leech on your gear. You can take it in the skill tree when you are leveling up. But as soon as you can, try to get a pair of rings which have mana leech on. Same thing for your amulet. Try to get some damage, as you can see on this one. Increased added physical damage. Also some increased life is quite nice, and the resistance you might need. And also increased melee damage and some melee strike range, which is quite nice as well, which I have crafted on this one. For my armor, this is the only specific unique item I'm using, if you don't counting my Lion's Roar flask. But Belly of the Beast, in my opinion, are probably one of the best armors you can have to this build, because they give you a huge chunk of life, which is really nice. And they also give you some resistance. If you can't afford a 6-link Belly of the Beast, which is relatively expensive to be honest, you can use a rare armor instead. And if you get going for a rare armor, try to get as high as you can armor value on it, and the best life you can get, and maybe some resistance if you are not maxed out. For my gloves, I'm using a pair of spike gloves because it increases my melee damage. I also have some added physical damage on it, and if you can afford it, you should try to get some attack speed as well, but then the gloves start to become quite expensive. I also have some resistance on it and some life, which is quite nice. For my belt, I'm just using this belt here, which is a rustic sash, whatever it's called. I know someone probably will point out I pronounced that wrong, but I don't really care, because hopefully you understand what I'm saying. But anyway, what you want for your belt are life and resistance. You can see this belt have quite a bit of resistance. If you can get some strength on there as well, you can get even higher life value, which is always a plus. And for my boots, just defensive boots, some movement speed, some resistance and some life. And if you can, try to get some strength on it as well. And for my flasks, I'm using one anti-bleeding flask because I don't know how many times I say it, but always carry an anti-bleeding flask of some sort is a very good idea, because I have in this game died so many times to bleeding, and I'm gonna be honest, I still sometimes forget to have a bleeding flask myself, which have killed me and a couple of other builds plenty of time because of my own stupidity. So it's better to be honest with that. But try to always carry an anti-bleeding flask, or which removes the bleeding on use. I have another remove bleeding on use, which is not that necessary, but this is the flask I happen to have right now. I have some other flasks here as well. I'm using a Lion's Roar to get a nice bonus to my melee damage. I'm using a Sulfur flask for get some more damage. I was about to say I forgot the reason why I'm using it, because of a long time I wasn't on this build. And I remember it gave me some damage, creates a smoke cloud, consecrated ground on use, and I have some resistance on it. It's not a must-have, but I like it. And I have a Quicksilver Basalt flask, which also have remove bleeding on use, and using this for the protection against physical damage. None of these two flasks are particularly a must-have. You can you can actually have another Lion's Roar if you can afford it and get one more. They're not that expensive, but they're really nice. And that is my flask lineup. And by the way, before I do anything else, having an anti-freeze flask is a good idea as well. And that's pretty much my gear setup. So let's take a look at my skill gems. I can start by talking about my main damage skill, which is Dual Strike. And Dual Strike are supported by Rage, Maim, Fortify, Brutality, and melee physical damage. You can swap out Rage for multi-strike instead, if you want even more attack speed. And this build can use Cleave as well, but I prefer using Dual Strike. For my auras and buffs, I'm using Pride. Enemies near you take increased physical damage, or more physical damage to be more correctly. And I'm using Herald of Purity, increases my... I do more physical damage when using this one, and even summons some minions for you to fight for you, which takes away some attacks from your enemies and do a little bit of damage as well. And using Blood Rage for some more attack speed and Life Leech. Using one Cosmic Damage Taken setup, which is a level 1 Cosmic Damage Taken. And I increased duration, and they are both supporting Creeping Frost to slow down enemies, and Vortex to slow down enemies even more. I'm using Whirling Blades for my my movement skills. I'm using Whirling Blades and Leap Slam, and they are both supported by Blood Magic and fast attacks. I'm using Blood Magic, so I'm using my life instead of mana, so I can pretty much use these two skills indefinitely. I will never have to stop using them or be afraid to run out of mana. I'm using two counter skills, which the first one is Riposte. I do a fair bit of damage, and I always love the counter attacks. And Riposte are supported by Chance to Bleed and melee physical damage. I'm also using Vengeance, which have a chance to trigger when you get hit, and it is supported by melee physical damage, Life Leech, and life gain hit to give me some more life. These two skills here are not that high of damage, but it's nice to have some extra damage here and there and punish some enemies that hits you. And also, counter skills actually getting a little bit of a buff from Painforge. You can see counter attack still double damage, so the damage of these two skills will be doubled because you are an gladiator. So that's pretty much it. Let's go into that map and have some fun. So let's start the gameplay time. So let's put our Maelstrom up, I think it should be called. And do we have any mods? Whatever. Let's just play it. I haven't played a Maelstrom map in a very long time. It's actually Maelstrom of Chaos, actually, to be more correct. It's actually one of the oldest unique maps in the game. And this being this high level, well, this could certainly be interesting, because this map actually have a fair bit of damage to it, so it's something to be a little bit careful about. But what better map to actually try out the build on? See, my damage right now is almost 200,000, which is, to be honest, in today's world of Path of Exile, it's not that a lot of damage, but it was really good for its time. But enemies are dying at least. So let's get rid of some enemies. I know the boss on this map is nothing very specific if they haven't changed the map since the last time I played it, which, to be fair, was very, very long time ago. So let's get rid of that. Ah, the classics. Playing this old build again. Actually, back in the day, it was actually my Dual Wield Duelist was actually my first ever successful build I ever made. And even though the time have moved on, this build, it's still fun to play, but it isn't as powerful as today's build by any means, but it's certainly doing its job if you want a more classical build. At least in my opinion. Hey, you enemies. Let's get rid of you. You'll disappear. By the way, one mob on this map is that the enemy have cursor reflect, so using a curse on this map is never a good idea. Do I have some frame rate drop? Well, at least Path of Exile after all, so... Oh! There I talked about before by using an anti-freeze flask. You can see the mistake I did right there, the fail I did right there. That's why you should always have an anti-freeze flask, but sometimes I'm lazy. That can be costly. Let's get rid of you. How much damage do I have? 200,000. Go up to almost 300k. I have my buffs ups. There are some more buffs that you can get. Hello, Merville's Reflection. It's not a dangerous boss at all. Bring it, Merville. Smash you. Gonna put you into that corner, and you're dead. So the damage is not that bad as I remember. Actually, the damage is not bad. It's just that there are builds in the game that are way more powerful. So let's get rid of you. Let's take that. I want to clear this map entirely because I might get lucky and actually get some high level maps for once. I don't play that often to put on. Oh yeah, the cracking sky. That was a long time since I saw you. Oh, you hurt. Please die. Here we go. What was that? A little belt. Oh, it's just warm coal. And I know my setup for this kind of a build guide. Actually, this is a build guide. A little bit different, but I just felt for doing something more relaxed and just showing a bunch of clips from I killing bosses with a build. Why not just show it in action? Why just playing a normal map, as I usually do? Let's get rid of you. I think we soon clear the map. Man, I'm starting to getting close to leveling this character. I got leveled this character, I believe one of my highest level characters I have. It's something quite satisfying by just hitting once and just see the enemies just explode and disappear. But it's still satisfying after all these years. And I think that is map cleared. I have 4 monsters left, I don't care about that. But anyway, I hope you guys like this video. Tell me what you think about my build, and I thank you all for watching.